I'm Colleen Appel. My pronouns are she and her. Online viewers, you won't be seeing my face today, but you will have the closer look at the slideshow. At the outset of my talk, I will say I have no authority as a church officer to deliver this message. I'm a temporary secretary, a non-voting member of the board. However, I do know a lot about sociocracy, and I have come to believe it is a viable way to create safe spaces for big conversations. And so the board members asked me to speak to you today as preparation for the upcoming congregational meeting. We need to talk. We're making big decisions about church governance, the time for worship service, and welcoming children. Could bees lead us to making democratic decisions? Honeybees make decisions collectively and democratically. Every year, their relocation process relies on collecting fact-finding, vigorous debate, and consensus building. What guidance can bees give us for the challenges we currently face? I didn't stand far enough away to practice, huh? Okay, so Luna's going to take over for me for advancing the slides. Okay, and we're ready for slide 3. Dr. Thomas Seeley, a Cornell professor of biology and an expert on the subject of honeybee democracy, visits with an urban planner about what we can learn from honeybees when it comes to effective decision making. Listen as he talks about how to get buy-in for important decisions.
Tom, I'm really interested in what you've learned from bees that it can help us look at a very complex problem in the urban environment. How are we going to repartner with nature in the city?
The thing that I've learned from the bees is the power of collective intelligence in solving this kind of problem. That is to say, the power of a group of individuals coming together, pooling their different pieces of knowledge about that problem, and then working together to find a solution to the problem. The bees do that par excellence.
Okay, so that means that we as individuals could traverse our own locality and maybe come up with different parts of the information we need to design cities better.
Exactly. The bees illustrate that very powerfully because when they need to find a new home, which is a very important problem for them, it's life or death in fact, they send out scout bees, hundreds of scout bees from a single swarm to look for potential home sites. Those bees search independently for their particular solutions. They come back and share their ideas and then work together to identify which of the various sites that has been found is the best one for their new home.
Okay. You've applied this in meetings and you know of examples.
Yes, I've used it to the amusement initially of my colleagues to run our department faculty meetings, which meet each month. And there, when we have a really sticky issue, or even not a sticky issue, I like to say, here's the issue, and I'm going to moderate this meeting, but I'm not going to run this meeting completely. I do want to hear about everybody's ideas for how to solve this problem. And then once we've gone around the table where everybody's piped up on what they thought about it, then we start a discussion. And very often, one solution emerges over time as the one that seems to make the most sense, which means it's convinced most of the people in the room that that's the best one.
Okay, so there's no one who's left thinking, I had the best idea in this room and nobody listened to me.
There might still be a few people thinking that, but they probably at least feel that, okay, I still think my idea was the best, but I can see collectively a lot more people like that other idea than mine. So, you win some, you lose some. And so they at least buy in that this is an acceptable solution.
Okay, that sounds very interesting in terms of the urban situation where we have what's called consultancy and we're asked questions and we answer them and then they may not be applied to the decision at the end of the day. And a lot of people feel cheated. So in this situation, it's a group coming together, throwing ideas around, and they're involved in a process.
Yeah, right. I bet those people feel cheated because they didn't hear the discussion which led to the decision to go to this option, which was not their chosen one. Whereas if you have a small enough group of people, then they can all hear, they can hear the discussion and feel like they were part of it and even participate in the discussion. So how do these ideas that we've learned from the bees relate to some of the issues you've faced in urban design?
There usually is a real problem with a consultation process that happens, and then the individuals involved don't get feedback as to why their ideas haven't translated into the design, or even if they have, how they have. And at the end of the day, the whole concept is taken away from them and they don't really feel part of it. So I can see how what you're doing, what the bees do, could be a far more effective approach.
That's right. Every scout bee is involved from start to finish in the process. I know my colleagues in a department meeting would not want to just be reporting ideas to me and then have me make the decision based on their ideas. No, it's important that both at the process stage of collecting the information and processing the information, that the individuals are involved. So people have enough buy-in and acceptance of the decision that comes out.
Right.
And I usually try to have at least 80% buy-in. If you have less than that, you just have a large enough majority of people that aren't really happy with the outcome.
And do you think that process actually brings out information from people, people who maybe wouldn't normally contribute?
Definitely, it brings out information. Many people are reticent and need a little coaxing. And if somebody doesn't offer an idea, I'll come back to them and they might say, well, I want to hear what others have said before I comment, and I make sure to come back to them. But the main technique is to go around the room, have some systematic way to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
So what works well for bee swarms can also work well for human groups. Dr. Seeley offers the following 4 guidelines for achieving a high collective IQ. Remind ourselves of our shared interests and foster mutual respect. The scout bees work together as a team because they know it's in their mutual interest to select an optimal home site. Number 2, explore diverse solutions to the problem to maximize the likelihood of uncovering an excellent option. The scout bees search far and wide to discover a broad assortment of possible living quarters. 3, minimize a single leader's influence on the group's thinking. The scout bees have no dominating leader and so can take a broad and deep look at their options. And 4, balance interdependence and independence. Scout bees share freely the news of their finds, but each one makes her own independent decision of whether or not to support a site. Seeley says these methods can be remarkably effective at producing good decisions. Let the bees show you that with the right organization, democratic groups can be remarkably intelligent. Let's consider the challenges First UU is facing. We currently have no president, vice president, or financial secretary. No one said yes to these positions in time for November elections, leading me, your past president, to propose that we consider a governance structure of shared leadership. The Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA, supports a shared structure called sociocracy, and we got the blessing of the UU Mid-America region to proceed. In the meantime, we continue to operate under our current bylaws. The business of the church is getting done. Ben, our treasurer, signs the checks. The 4 elected board members met 2 weeks ago. Christopher, the program's trustee, chaired the meeting. All staff positions are filled and the committees have chairs. But a 4-member board, meeting only once in 4 months, is an anemic structure for making major decisions. A group of committee chairs and board members wrote this in response to the challenge of board vacancies, pointing the way to the work necessary to meet the challenge. Because we currently have a leadership structure that demands much of individuals in terms of time and pressure, we have no nominees for major board positions, leading to anxiety about the future of First UU. Therefore, we need a revisioning of the leadership structure to move the congregation forward. Today, we take that next step with sociocracy. We've studied the structure in a small group and used the method to support discussions in that group and in the social action circle. Today, I share the method with you. The purpose of today's work is to prepare ourselves for the upcoming congregational meeting. Sociocracy, also called dynamic governance, is a system of governance which seeks to create psychologically safe environments and productive organizations. It is distinguished by the use of consent rather than majority voting. Please note that consent means that people agree to move forward, even if the proposal isn't their preferred choice. Consensus means that everyone agrees on the proposal itself. Consent allows us to make good decisions faster. Members in sociocratic circles engage with each other in a spirit of experimentation, with ongoing evaluation of how policies are working. For instance, in November, we consented to a 10:30 a.m. worship service time with the understanding that it was good enough for now and not likely to cause harm, and that it would be reevaluated in 6 months. Sociocracy upholds 2 fundamental principles. The first, organizational effectiveness in the achievement of aim and purpose, and the second, the equality of members, honoring everyone's voice. No one is silenced, no one is ignored, no one is oppressed, and no one holds power over another. Sociocracy realizes these principles through 3 key features. Number 1, decision-making is done by consent as opposed to majority voting. 2, working groups are organized in circles. And 3, feedback is valued at all levels. Let's look at each in depth. Policy decisions in a sociocratic circle are made by consent. Consenting to a proposal means I have no objection, or I have resolved my objection to this proposal, and I'm willing to collaborate with the other circle members to put this policy in place. Having no objection does not mean that you think this is the best solution possible or imaginable, or that it ticks all the boxes that are important to you. It means that this proposal is good enough to be put in place now. To consent to a proposal, it does not need to be your first preference. It just needs to be within your range of tolerance. I might prefer chocolate ice cream, but if I was offered strawberry, I would eat it because strawberry is in my range of tolerance. If, however, I was offered pineapple, I would refuse it. It's outside my I eat that range. Objections are not seen as roadblocks and obstacles. Objecting essentially means I want to work effectively, and this proposal will negatively affect my work. So we need to figure out how to make this proposal better. Our aim as a group is that a proposal is good enough so that everyone can work. In the case of Sunday worship, you might say, I want a good worship experience, and our current practices negatively affect that experience. So we need to figure out how to make our shared experience better. Reservations, hesitations, doubts, and discomfort are encouraged in sociocracy. There are reasoned objections to a 10:30 worship service. Sociocracy offers a method for working through those objections. In sociocracy, people that work together form a circle. Every circle has a domain in its area of authority. Every circle has an aim, a description of what they do. For example, in the Blue Scorcher Bakery in Oregon, USA, there is a circle responsible for pastry, another one for chocolate products, and another for bread products. Here's what it might look like at First UU. And that's my pencil diagram, but you see there, you see the committees as circles. Circles are a friendlier concept than committees. Each circle in sociocracy has a facilitator and a representative to sit on the general circle. The general circle chooses a representative to meet with the top circle. The top circle is similar to our current board of directors, but it doesn't stand alone. It sends a representative back to the general circle. This double linking upholds the sociocratic principle of efficiency. Our current structure sometimes results in missed communication. Think back to when worship time got changed. The board directive was that committees should consider the reasons for a change and take the time to study it. At the same time, the Sunday Services Committee had good reason to switch to a 10 o'clock service in the summer. The intention was to have congregational input, but by not sitting at the table together, the board was surprised that the time was changed without discussion by the membership and did not know that the Sunday Services team viewed it as just a summertime practicality and never a permanent time change. Feedback is a central feature of sociocracy. Did we achieve our aims in this meeting? What did we think went well and what did we think could do better? A time is always scheduled for evaluation of new policies. That's a whole lot of information. Let's take a break to look at the bees. A 2-minute break to look at bees.
Bees. Buzzing bees can be found all over the world. There are lots of types of bees, from honeybees to bumblebees. Solitary bees, like carpenter bees and mining bees, live alone. While social bees, like the most common honeybee, live in large colonies. Each bee has a job. The important queen bee lays lots of eggs. They live a long time. Drone bees are male, and busy worker bees are female. They use beeswax to build the hive. Here are some hives in the wild. And here is a beekeeper's hive. Can you see the honeycomb structure? And busy worker bees take care of the young, clean the hive, groom the queen, and they collect pollen and nectar from flowers. With their long tongues, they slurp up the sweet pollen and nectar. collecting the pollen on pollen baskets on their bodies. They make honey with the nectar and pollen. Honey is used to feed the whole colony.
Thank you, Lena. You're doing a great job of support staff this morning. The board got a request to return to an 11 a.m. start time.
Yay.
What might that discussion look like when we apply this sociocratic method? It starts with the ball of yarn. In this case, that ball of yarn includes a list of needs, such as a full hour for the seekers to meet, time for the choir to practice without interruption, and honoring the call of hungry tummies. We make a list of all the elements of the issue with no solutions presented at this time, and then we consent to the completeness of the list. Next, creative proposal ideas are presented with no judgment or evaluation of their worth. People designated as tuners take the proposals and shape the ideas into a manageable number of proposals, which are then circulated to the whole circle. Then the circle regathers to consider the proposals one at a time. Time is given for clarifying questions and quick reactions. Then comes the consent round, where participants are asked, do you have any paramount objections to this proposal? Sociocracy has a number of steps for resolving objections. Once a proposal has been accepted as good enough for now and not likely to cause harm, the group celebrates. Now the diagram on the screen gives those variety of steps to handle objections. Now, what does this look like for a discussion about starting time? Our worship service at 11 might well be your first preference because it allows seekers to resume a 9:45 meeting time with a full hour to meet. But would meeting at 9:30 with a 50-minute class be within your range of tolerance? That'd be the kind of discussion you'd have under sociocracy. As for welcoming children to church, currently our thoughts are framed around the question, how much time should children spend in the sanctuary? What might happen if we focus on proposals that answer the question, how do we show children and their carers that we value them? I'm expecting we would get a broad, rich range of solid proposals. For instance, Pharaoh, as the religious education circle facilitator, might propose, let's try having children in church for the full hour with an array of items designed to support them. And then another member might propose, let's experiment with building a strong children's program downstairs. So you heard me say experiment because sociology is based, sociocracy. It would be so easy to say Socratic. But sociocracy is based on experimentation and reevaluation. You know, and others might propose something that combines the two or something that takes a completely different turn. Ideally, we would have a talkback session after church today, but we ran out of time to fully prepare for it. So watch for announcements regarding picture forming, that's how to look at the whole picture, and proposal making sessions. Pharaoh has said she's going to be a co-facilitator with me, and I have a couple other people in mind, hoping that they will help as well. We are proceeding exactly as the UUA suggests. That is, we are practicing pieces of the system of dynamic governance. Someday, we may want to adopt the entire system of sociocracy, including a new set of bylaws. For now, our time spent practicing making decisions by consent is good preparation for all future decision making. Thank you for letting me share this information about dynamic governance with you. Following the service, I will be happy to answer your questions about the Socratic method. Blessed be and amen.